Oh, I forgot. Yeah. Values. What are the values? Love, honesty, commitment. These are all the values that we are inculcating in a home. Now, a home requires both material and non-material aspects. We require money because we require food, grocery, vegetable, transport, education, and it cannot be that we do not require material. We require both. We require caring, kindness, all these things which are the non-material, that is the bonding, which is empathy, kindness, love. This is all comes from the non-material aspect. Okay, now very important aspect here. Who is a homemaker? Somebody who makes a home. Now, who is over here is the one who makes a home? Who is here? All over here, just raise your hand. Are we all here part of a family? Yes. Are we coming from a family? Yes. Are we going to go back to a family, a home? Yes. It is we only who make a part of a family. It is the roles we play in a home. The role of a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a husband, and wife. And we all are the ones who are playing these roles. Now, there is a primary homemaker. A primary homemaker is somebody, because of there is a home which needs management, there's coordination, there is so much of supervision required, and there is so much of decision making required that one person, it's children are small, that becomes primary homemaker. And we all, as a family, if you provide a and you get money, then it's a secondary homemaker. If there are children involved, they're the secondary homemaker. If there are grandparents involved, they're the secondary homemaker. We do both. We are making a home and we make our professionals. We can't survive without both of them. We are homemakers, we are professionals. It is nobody else. It is us who are the homemakers. When you refer somebody to a homemaker, who is that? That is us only. It is us. We go back home and make a home. A homemaker is nobody else. It is we only who make the play the roles of a mother, father, brother, sister, and that starts from a home. We do both things. It is like in the management, they say we are the producers, we are the consumers, we are the homemakers, and we are the professionals. There is nobody else doing those roles. We do both these things. Now, unpaid work in a home is made with unpaid work. Now, what is this unpaid work? This needs clarity. Now, if I make a cup of tea in a home, it is always going to be free. It is called free work. Now, that work, if I do it myself, even it's regardless of a gender, it might be a child, it might be a grandmother. If I do it myself, it is always going to be free. That unpaid work means free work. And when is it supposed to be paid? When is a mother supposed to be paid for bringing up a child? It was always supposed to be free. So this concept of free work, when Aryabhatta gave the concept of zero, it meant free. Free and zero means, and the beauty of zero, you know what is that? Multiplied or divided by anything, it remains constant. Now, what we do here is that what is the problem we are facing? Is that now let me just give you this illustration that I had made. How does this work? Okay. Now, this is a home on the left side, and we have a paid work on the right side. It is, a home which is made with unpaid work, and this is paid work. Now, unpaid work is what? There is a homemaker, it's a genderless role. Anybody can do it. One person is required when children are small. Why do we require it? It requires, you're doing, what are you doing? You're doing cooking, cleaning, laundry. Now, here there is human resources which come under parenting. There is caregiving. There is relationship. There is extended family relationship. There is a grandparents relationship. All these are relationships. Now it started as free. Now that gets changed to businesses. It has to start as free. Why? Because we do it ourselves. Not everybody, 95% of people across the world cannot afford maids. If that is a maid that needs to do it. Now, where is the problem? The problem that we have made a policy because in GDP calculation, we in the three methods of GDP calculation, we take paid work. That is, when somebody start, making money out of it. That means our benchmark is paid work. Now, when the benchmark is paid work, everything starts at free as unpaid. We have to convert that into paid work for it to qualify. The problem is here. We are not looking at unpaid work as unpaid. It is supposed to be unpaid. We need to convert that into paid work. And that is the problem. The benchmark of art is paid work. Now, because of that, everything gets to be commercialized or it has to have a monetary value. And that is why here it is very important that we have to start accepting unpaid work or free work as it is because homes cannot be made otherwise. Home, the intent of a person making a home has to be pure. We start as couple and the basis of that is love and it cannot be monetary. And that is why we need to accept this as unpaid work in the GDP calculation. Otherwise, we are saying that homes and families do not exist. Let me stop here and let me introduce Aarti, my co-host, because she's going to take this forward now. Aarti Aluwalia, let me just introduce her. Serves as the country chair for Eco-Civilization India and a UN rep working on agendas ranging from energy security to agendas such as terrorism, riot victimization, suicide prevention, and of recently transnational organized crime. She's a director in her family business related to construction products and is a co-founder in 6 different networks globally. She's a systems thinker and aims at humanization of just about everything under the sun. I welcome Aarti. Aarti,
Wow.
Aarti Aluwalia, please. Over to you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me here and allowing me to work with you on this agenda. Because, like you rightly said, everything that we might think of, we might know of today starts from home. And while there is a certain method in which we calculate the GDP, there are parameters that we've not factored in. And I think in the time of the world, we are at a point where it is extremely important to start talking about the institutions we've built and what do they stand for. Are they really capturing us in all our essence? Because we are not unidimensional people. We don't exist in just one dimension of, let's say, transactions or fending for ourselves. There are things, there are ideas, there are experiences that go completely unprocessed, and they become a part of our subconscious, our collective subconscious. And I think if you look at the state of the world today, which I'm sure everybody's worried about to a degree, which is why we are convening and bringing up these subjects of discussion, you would agree that we really need to work hard. And spaces that we need to work hard is, first of all, within ourselves, very conscious, and these are painful things to do. These things don't come in easy when we have to switch from how we do to how we should and can do. I think each one of us has been given the faculty and the reason by the very essence of having been born and coming alive that we have a responsibility towards the fabric of the world. Each of us holds a certain thread. Each of us, we matter. At the same time, we are equally insignificant because nature would still continue if we are not around. With that, I would like to bring in a very interesting perspective from an economist on whether we are on the right track at all. Should we even bring this up? Is there a way that we need to think differently? And if we do, how do we approach it? Because this has never been spoken about. The very image that you see behind us, it is about women, working and toiling. And there is no way we can sort of even put estimates as to how much or how they should be paid and what that contribution truly stands to be from history to our present to our future. With that, I'd like to invite somebody really special to us. Dr. Kishore is with us. He's not only an economist, he's also the chief financial officer for one of the most prestigious construction companies in India called Beacon Infra. And interestingly, I met Dr. Kishore at one of the industry events, which was to do with infrastructure. And when I heard him talk, I thought, here is a person who's going to take the hard way of looking at economy and connect it with the impact, which is actually the soft territory. And it was, in fact, to be honest, let me make that confession, and this is being recorded. So I actually heard only the last 10 minutes of his speech. So I missed the early part, but I think that was good enough. And with that, I would like to invite Dr. Kishore to share with us what does he think about, or what in his experience should be our stand or our stance. What are some of the advantages do you see with us bringing up this topic and collecting and convening on this? And what do you think, sir, would be the disadvantages as well? So 3 questions, and let's see what we can learn from you and how we can move forward with that wisdom. Dr. Kishore, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a wonderful introduction, in fact. So my sincere thanks for the valuable opportunity to discuss with you, to interact with you. And with your permission, I'll take my screen. Okay. Share. Fine. Yes. Fine. Did it fit to the window, ma'am? Is it full window?
So you might want to click on the icon on the bottom right that looks like a screen, and then you can maximize it.
Yeah. Now I think it is, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the leaders here, the angels and the gentlemen, of course, not to discriminate between the genders. And the introductory speech of both the leaders, the knowledge leaders who introduced the topic, have set a very right platform. And therefore, my job became relatively easier. This is a very timely topic to discuss about the unpaid work to be included in the GDP calculation, because the SNA, the System of National Accounting Methodology, which is used for computing GDP, is getting revised. And shortly, in 15 days or 10 days now, it will be tabled before UN, and then UN would finalize the nuances, and then the new version replacing 2008 version could come from 1st of April. However, we can't be very hopeful of including unpaid work at the moment, as there are no signals about that. But definitely there could be some movement, some progress towards that direction. Then, before I discuss anything, I want to share a few of my personal experiences, which will make you realize what is the gender disparity happening in many countries, as I saw, and more particularly in India as well. This is just a disclaimer. Now, my personal experience, we have done a universe survey, not just sample, survey of about 6 micro SME clusters covering 4,500 MTS units, micro, tiny, small units. And the results or the observations were shocking. What are they? A micro unit wouldn't distinguish between return on capital, salary for their work, and interest on the loan what they give to their business itself. Who are working in that? The person, his wife, his mother, his daughter, his sister, son, father as well. And what is the salary they are counting? Nothing. What is the profit they are counting? Amount. What is the interest on the loans what they give by pledging their wife's gold, daughter's gold, or some of the utensils, etc.? Nothing. Salary, interest, return, all are same for them. What do? They're subsidizing the medium and large industries with their hard work, sweat, blood, and span of life. I've personally seen at many bus stops, females waiting, very particularly after 6:30, 7, 8 o'clock. They stop at the bus stops. They can't run after the buses, which will not stop at the bus stop, but either ahead or behind. And they can't sit at wherever they can. They can't ask lift to any person, it could be even more unsafe. And they can't go by auto, they can't take a cab, and they can't purchase anything. Many of them do not have money. And even if they have money, some of them, they sacrifice. They save the money, thinking these few rupees also would be helpful to the family, to the kids. That is the heart, what they work with, what they live with. Well said in the introductory talk by Mohrama. That is the heart with which they live. And in many of the office places, barring 1-2%, infrastructure for families, for females, is still inadequate, scanty, or very awkward, etc. And even today, in many of the countries, many of the families, the female education is not a priority. And the family wealth, when distributed, while things have improved a lot, are still way behind. That girl and son aren't seen equally when the family wealth has to be distributed. And wherever it is, it could be temple, church, masjid, gurudwara, or any other places. Safety is still a concern for a female. This is a fact of life. And not to speak about circus, exhibition, mall, etc. Legal aid, while claimed as widely available, is a mockery. It's hardly available. And gender bias is clearly visible. This is my personal experience, which has improved in terms of my understanding, because things have improved a bit, but are in the same direction in a way, then and now, over a period of 30 years. Now, what is included in the GDP, which all of us knew, but a quick check: your household consumption, your investments made by the business and also by the households for residential consumption, and by the government all expenditure, plus the net exports, which is exports minus imports. This is broadly either production method, income method, expenditure method. One of these methods or all the methods, the result should be broadly same except for the adjustments. This is the GDP computation. Now, what are also included apart from those what we saw in the GDP are slightly interesting. Defense expenditure, of course, at cost is included. It's not sold, but included. Education services, some of them which are unpriced, unsold, are also included. Unsold inventories in production method are included, and I and E methods adjusted. Imputed rents, you own a house, you are living in it. Although you have not paid any rent to anyone, still, because there is an implied imputed rent, that kind of rent is computed and included, which is deemed as spent, deemed as a cost. Then repair, recovery works, which are not adding any new value, are also included. Insurance premia, similar style, included. Subsistence farming, which is very relevant for our today's discussion, is also included. What is this? Farmers who produce items for their own consumption, not to be sold, for the family consumption, for the self consumption, are also included in the computation of GDP. This gives a hint for our topic, why unpaid work deserves to be included. But we proceed and then we take it at the right time. Household services, if availed through a commercial agency, are included. If rendered by the homemaker, gent lady, mother, sister, brother, whoever, not included. And these are in line with SNA 2008 version, 2005, 25 version, as we discussed, is slightly improving. Subsistence farming and other things are being adjusted now. Then, few countries, few in Europe, Canada, Australia, have got a different methodology apart from SNA system, where they compute something called satellite account statements. In that, they also include the tourism, the environment, the health aspect, etc., based on which they make policy decisions than solely based upon the GDP computations, GDP numbers only. Then, what are not included in GDP apart from what we are talking? This is also quite interesting. Informal economic activities. I mean, talking about the El Mechano, El Mayo, Dawood Ibrahim, etc. The informal value adding services rendered by millions of informal units, economic units, are not included, could not be included. There is no proper enumeration for inclusion. Therefore, the informal sector is still out of GDP. Broadly, there could be few estimates. Impliedly, some getting into the formal sector, those could be captured, but broadly they are out of GDP competition. Subsidized transactions in micro, tiny, small units. As I spoke, they are subsidizing. If only their salaries of the family members, mother, sister, daughter, wife, son, brother, father, if the salaries of all these people are included, 8 of them and self, then the pricing would be different. But then they arrive at the cost and price on numbers which are not genuine, because these salaries are put aside and they are selling the goods and services at subsidized prices. If these subsidies are taken off, the GDP would be different, but these are not included. The free services, of course, the cashback, underpriced, etc., not included. The environmental costs, which Aarti ma'am has been stressing upon in multiple fora, as I heard and then became a big fan of her. Environmental costs are not included. The green concerns, which we are all championing and trying to be within our discipline way of working, are not included. The sale of used goods, even if they add value, aren't included. Digital data is now getting included in 2025 version, which is a bit of correction. Then capital depreciation, which was adjusted earlier, is now rectified in 2025 version. Therefore, these two could be considered as yes, addressed. And of course, the topic of our discussion, today's discussion, unpaid household work is not included. So what is the question few may pose, have been posing? Numbers could not lie, as all of us knew. As per ILO, Oxfam, and few other reports, it is noted that 9% of the global GDP is unpaid work. Such a big number. Global GDP is between 2.8 to 3.2%. 9% is unaccounted for. And in India, as per opportunity cost method, it's considered as 24.6, replacement cost method 32.4, and including formal sector, informally estimates put it at 40% of GDP. We are number 3 economy if this is included, and we are put on par with other competitions. Then these estimates could be higher in developing and LDC economies, relatively lower, but relatively lower in developed economies. But in all cases, GDP values are incorrect because unpaid domestic work is not included. Incorrect GDP. What will it take? What will it make? Monetary policy, fiscal policy, the investment decisions, budgetary planning, the currency value and adjustments, the infrastructure development, the inflationary management activities, all of them are not optimal because GDP value itself is not correct. Then, of course, on the other side, the social security and pension distributions or fixation, the education and training spend or dispensation, the healthcare dispensation, and social welfare activities, aid subsidies distribution, economic stimulus to be distributed or ensured, and the rural planning. These all go for a toss because the base is incorrect. Then many say, funnily, it is included. Maybe to an extent they are not wrong. Why? They say the cost of unpaid work is already implicitly included in the GDP calculation because the value of the services rendered by purely working women not working at home at all, purely working men not taking care of home at all, those are already including the value of unpaid work. Oh, possible that this could be one logic to understand. If this is so, is it not going into the wrong account, be it men or women, and mostly men, which they should not be deserving? Why don't we knowingly do that kind of incomplete, incorrect method calculation? Why can't we compute accurately, separately, and then have right data for right policies, optimal policies, apt policies? Then the other set of arguments, few fanatics have been coming out and saying, do not include. Why? They say love, care, romance, and self consumption should not be priced, should not be included in GDP. It should be out. It is just emotion. There is no economic angle. There is no emotion without economics. There is no economics without emotion. As Balla ma'am has very rightly mentioned, economics, emotion are embedded. Only then there is a healthy, happy, financially healthy, emotionally healthy, happy family. assuming we go by love, care, romance, and self consumption, need not be included. Economics have to be economics. We are going wrong on economics if we are not including. Subsistence farming is included. Same rule should apply there as well, but it is not so. Need for inclusion is, in fact, warranted, has been raised as a voice because of gender disparity. May not be otherwise. This concept or this thought may not have come to the fore had there not been gender disparity. If it is purely emotion without economics, this may not have been an issue for discussion deliberation. Exclusion is misguiding the policies and allocations. And these misguided policies cause further gender disparity, and this gets into a vicious cycle. Social adversities like these adversities are seen daily. TV, paper, and social media have been reporting very widely attacks, dowry demands. Within the family, a female is not safe. That is a fact of life. We may not understand, we may not agree, but that's a fact of life. Old age pensions to women are paid as charity. Is it charity or is it dignity payment or is it acknowledgement for their service what was rendered? And there are a few more to list. Of these arguments, now we could conclude that these have to be included to have proper or correct GDP. Now, include and do what? Okay. Fund these aspects: domestic infra, proper kitchen, proper house, water, sanitation. In most of the rural areas, even today, kitchen is not proper. It's called kitchen because it's cooked there. It is keeping the whole house warm, but that is not warm. Trust me, I have seen many of the kitchens myself. Healthcare still very, very inadequate for women, for all and for women more.
Of Uganda.
Insurance cover is hardly
Oh, I
present.
think I heard.
Education is hardly made available to the women separately as they require. Enterprise funding, if women want to come and then start enterprise, is rarely available, scantily available. Safety and security, a big issue which we have been discussing. There is no dignity, there is less dignity at least. Legal aid, people claim, but it is hardly made available. And many more to list now. Okay, are will houses be better? Will houses be empowered? That's a question, one of the questions what we have in the three. Yes, and in many ways, few as follows. Policy interventions can be better. Workforce participation of women or the homemaker can be wider. Economic activity increases. And as it increases, better economic conditions of families, of society, and of countries can be felt and ensured. Women receive their deserving dignity. It is the question of dignity, from my view, than money and other aspects. Dignity is deserved by women who are rendering this kind of valuable service. And the respect. Vulnerability will reduce as you recognize them, as you give them the dignity. And the level playing field in other fora, such as legislation making, and employment, etc. And gender disparity will reduce, social behavior will be corrected, which it should be at the earliest. Who have been supporting this inclusion? All of you, I know, myself for long, and countless persons, regardless of the gender, including Simon Kuznets, who is the father of GDP. It is Simon who introduced the concept of GDP in 1934 to address the lacuna for the governments to understand what is the economic growth, depression, what measures have to be taken. Kindly note that GDP as a concept has come into the evolution only to help the governments, to help the policy makers understand what measures, what policies, which sections should be benefited, should be provided, should be supported. If such a base is incorrect with the exclusion of unpaid housework, then how can the policies be correct? How can the implementation of the policies be correct? Therefore, and Christine Lagarde, Joseph Stiglitz, Hillary Clinton, Melinda Amartya Sen, and many more, in fact, many more. I've just picked up few names which are known to me and at least popular in my circles as we discuss once in a while. Then, how do we value this unpaid work? There are a good number of methods. Specialists substitute, use wages of specialists. In fact, yesterday I was talking to a kid in a small function, a book inauguration function, and that girl was telling our health minister. Imagine, just I felt that word is so lovely. That little girl used the word our health minister. Who was that? Her mother. She calls her mother as health minister because mother gives a lot of domestic medicine and also ensures that external the medicine which is given by medical agency is administered, and she has a lot of household medicines, and therefore because she's taking care of grandparents both sides, father, children, herself, she's called health minister. How lovely is the designation. I just loved it, and it is lingering in my mind, and it will last for a long time. So using ways of specialists, if each of these works, what we call as household works, have to be priced, global substitute, broaden average wage rate, and then apply for the overall time is another method. Input approach, the cost of all the input goods and services used to render these services by the homemakers, by the gent lady, whoever, as rightly mentioned by our keynote speaker, is another approach. Output approach, where the prices of similar services, if exchanged in the market one to one as a service, is another approach. Time accounts will not value it with monetary amounts, but will ascertain the actual time which is sacrificed or invested or spent. And triple R approach, which is also widely recommended because of its social impact, where recognize the works, reduce the works, redistribute the burden among all the family members so that the emotion factor will be lively, lovely, and family bonding will improve. But little used, although it is widely recommended. Then the two most popular approaches, one is opportunity cost, the other one replacement cost. Opportunity cost is when the same homemaker goes out, uses her time, his time, and earns one's own money. That is the opportunity cost of the person, of the homemaker. Replacement cost, if you have to avail of same services from outside, could be from specialist, could be from comparable person, the cost what you incur and pay is the replacement cost. Okay, I don't spend much time on this. Opportunity and replacement cost differences. Broadly, as you understood, you going outside and rendering service as per your ability, you earn what, that is opportunity cost. You avail of the service from outside, whatever you have to pay to an outsider, that is replacement cost. Then what are the challenges? Are there any challenges? Maybe yes, few. And what are those? Data collection is still a challenge. Time use survey was done last in 2019 in India, could not be done so easily because of its comprehensive exercises involved and the efforts involved, and of course the cost involved. But in this digital era, with the digitalization, with the AI, this should not be a real problem if the government has resolved to conduct time use survey. It could be approximate. So what? You have some data to rely upon, which is much better than the incorrect GDP plus the adjustment from the time use data. Time use data can't go wrong. It could be incomplete. So why not use the incomplete and approximate data and work towards the accurate data in the days to come? So data collection, while is a challenge, could be overcome. And deciding what is a suitable valuation methodologies. There are many research studies, there are arguments suggesting many of the methods out of what we listed out. So deciding the apt suitable methodology is a challenge because those methodologies suitability depend upon the economic condition of the country. In Australia, what suits may not suit in India. What suits in UAE may not be suitable in US. So there could be some differences. Undertaking the valuation exercise itself is, of course, a challenge. Need to be taken. This is a challenge. Need to be taken. And yes, this is the argument which I am listening in the local circles. People say you price everything, the care, the love, the romance, and the emotional bond. You want to make a family as a business unit. That is not the intention. It is misunderstood. Incomplete understanding is what making them to speak like that. It will enhance the harmony because when you realize that the other person is also contributing, your hegemonic thinking, your dominant behavior will cool down, calm down, you will become realistic. Therefore, this, which is also mentioned as a challenge, in my view, is a challenge, but should not be a challenge if you are matured enough to understand what it takes to give a hand to your homemaker and give him, give her equal respect for the service what he, she is rendering to the whole of the family using all of his, her heart and intention. And some say, okay, what about Dawood Ibrahim? What about El Mancho, El Mayo? these kind of activities, they are not included anyway. The informal sector is not included anyway. What difference does it make if you include only unpaid work and state something as correct GDP? Why do we bother about these things which could not be fixed, which require law and order angle and not social angle? Unpaid work is a social, economical, and human issue. It is not law and order issue. Therefore, we have to include the value of unpaid work in GDP calculation. So this is my brief talk, and we can take any questions now or later. Of course, we can take
Amazing.
over chat also. I may have crossed a minute or so, I don't know. And my sincere thanks to the entire leadership here and all the learned members who are amazing and who are contributing with your valuable points. And empowered women will empower women, which you are doing by virtue of this session and this topic.
Thank you, Dr. Kishore. This has been such a brilliant insight. And within a span of, I think, 10 minutes, you actually educated, you suddenly just upgraded us in terms of understanding what is the playing field for us. Because a lot of us don't really connect with, these insights. I mean, but let me try and do my best to sort of, crunch what you said as the next step for us. So when we're looking at the lack of understanding of how do we capture unpaid work, what are the descriptions, what are descriptors, what are those titles, what is the terminology, what are the ontologies? I think that is where we really need to invest and understand that the system that we are familiar with in terms of GDP calculation, like you rightly said, somebody mentioned that you want to commercialize the home unit. No. So imagine that is the only range of understanding how transactions and how businesses work. So I think we need to broad range, and you very rightly said that this is going to be an extremely human intensive exercise to build those kind of survey devices, to have those kind of measurement systems, to develop those theoretical frameworks that can really guide us in terms of developing a system or identifying parameters that can be plugged into the formula of GDP calculation. I think that is where we need to head in terms of our decided action and our shared goal here. One of the posts that I had put out, right before this event, and thank you so much, sir. I can't even begin. I mean, I think I had so many things I wanted to stitch together, but they were like so loaded one after the other. I think we don't need 90 minutes. We need at least 90 days to have that deliberation with you. So I invite everybody to connect with Dr. Kishore if you'd like to understand more, because he has that in-depth knowledge. So I invite everybody to exchange your LinkedIn IDs and phone numbers and emails, and please go ahead in terms of establishing those collaborations that we need to get together on. And coming to our next speaker, I'd like to also share a personal experience here in terms of the work that I did, and specifically in designing a framework that would capture the as-is reality in the grassroots, or depending upon the dynamics of the locations that we worked with. And this was a system called Be Well, which I love to say is both a wish upon the next generation, and it stands for Behavior and Wellbeing Framework, where we would put the child or the adolescent in the center and draw concentric circles around the child to understand what is the proximity of influence. So we have parents, teachers in the closest circle, peers in the closest circle, then we have the education system, then we have the local industry, we have the local influencers, and how do these people create an environment for the child? When it's said it takes a village, question is, where is the village? Who's in it? What are they doing? Now, this was a program that also, delivered on the promise made by Supreme Court of India at one point of time when kids were committing suicide, right? So this came in as an intervention to guide people in terms of checking their own action and understanding and developing the whole paradigm of respect towards children, towards the vulnerable of the society. It could be the woman of the house, it could be the man of the house who's under stress, and therefore creating those ripples of disturbance within the home system environment, impacting the child's academic performance, getting the child to experience the blowback from, let's say, the teachers and the peer groups. We have gone to such stress levels that we are becoming physically incapable of processing all of these experiences. And therefore, our bodies are breaking physically, we're developing mental health conditions. It's very interesting. When I used to go to the villages, working with kids who were, caught in these critical circumstances, I'd ask them, what do you want to do in life? They would say, I want to join the police or join the army so that we are able to do, things for our society so that they don't experience what we've experienced. When I go to urban children, they have a whole lot of mental health conditions because their parents don't give them the permissions. Imagine the great divide in terms of realism and what our environment is really doing to the next crop of, let's say, adult making, decision-making citizenry of the world. So mental health becomes just so central, and I won't go on because I think we do have an expert here on mental health, Nellie Bistrom, based out of Florida. She's the founder of Arm Education, and trust me, she's just done some beautiful work across the UN events. Abhilasha is also here. So three of us, we've run a lot of events with the United Nations and otherwise also. And they're leaders in terms of understanding both the fabric of society and what ails it, and how can they help people and participants that they have do that inner engineering, because eventually it's all going to come back to that. Everything, the way AI is going on and the way technology is increasing, it's not about us losing our jobs, but we are really becoming tired. And we are all going to come back to the fact that we need to work on ourselves so that we can step up and make the right kind of choices in the world. So with that, I'd like to invite Nellie. Nellie, thank you so much for making time and coming here. Both Nellie and Abhilasha, I think they're at the airport or heading to the airport to be there physically, or I think one of them has already reached. So thank you so much. We'll hear from Nellie, and yes, let's see what she has to say in the context of what all of us have been discussing for the last, I think, 45 minutes. Nellie, over to you.
Good morning, good evening, whatever part of the world you're in. Thank you, Arti. Thank you, Mona, for this opportunity. I want to zoom out a little bit, and thank you, Arti, for kind of queuing that up. I heard words like ontology and systems and what does home mean? And so I just want to kind of ground my contribution, and I really think you're all gonna find resonance, perhaps with different language, but what I would like to orient us towards, and I jumped in late, so if this was already shared, I apologize, but if we think of what does the word economy mean, like if you go to the root of the word economy, and at one time in my life, I used to teach micro and macroeconomics to students of high school who were smart enough to take a college level class, right? So, but young enough where I could dumb down the concepts for them in ways that were meaningful to them. And one of the things we spent like a whole class talking about is what is the meaning of economy? So economy, the root of it, I think, I'm just kind of remembering, I didn't actually look it up again, but the root of the word economy is literally management of the home. So there's a huge irony that the very activities and the value that home brings to the economy, whether it's local economy, the global economy, is in some measure excluded, right? From the way we define economy. And economy is really simply the way that we as humans manage our capacity, our ability to survive with scarce resources, right? And so that's applicable on every level. But then if we go back again and ask ourselves, what are resources? And who is managing what? And what frame are we using when we think about, or even the idea that we can dominate and use resources? It comes from a particular frame. So I just want you to sit with that for a moment, because there are solutions inside the current frame, and then there are solutions that come from breaking the frame and just going beyond the current frame within which we think about economy and within which we even think about home. So as a teacher of mindfulness and meditation, I can't help myself but to also ask, what does home mean? So when you think of home, there may be different things that come to mind, right? We might think about the home in which we grew up in. We may think about home in terms of our country. We may think about home in a very sort of inner perspective in terms of what does it feel like to be at home in ourselves, right? And so when we look at, you know, right now we're talking about how do we ensure that we value home as part of the economy? We go back to values. What is it that we're valuing and not valuing, right? And do the current frames that we're using even to find solutions, are we encompassing the way in which we relate to ourselves, to our immediate environment where we share space? Because I think when we talk about home and the management of home as a microeconomy, we're thinking about a shared physical space. We're thinking about sharing resources in that space to survive and to thrive. And resources are not just physical, right? Resources are intellectual, emotional, social, financial. And so when we think about the frame that we're using, does the frame value all of that? No, it doesn't, right? It values physical resources that we can see and touch. And it also comes from a frame of dominance, right? That we as humans in some way dominant can have dominion over, use and abuse what we perceive as resources. So when we think about the home and we think about how can we move past this exclusion? How can we make sure that this is valued? There's so many other symptoms of not valuing home and not, or let me phrase this differently. When we think about our relationality to ourselves, to community, and to the planet, if we are not in right relationship, we're going to find that it's a battle to include home in the GDP calculation and economy, right? And so what does it mean to be in right relationship? And what are the symptoms of not being in right relationship? The symptoms that we're seeing is a devaluation or an undervaluation of the feminine component, whether it's in the form of women or it's in the form of the feminine values that really hold home and community together, which is care, mostly care in all forms, nurturing, but not only the values of care and nurturing, but also the values of emotion and love, right? And it shows up in all of the different environments that we're in. And so even when we talk about, gender equality, and I've said this to my friends here on the call many times, it's not so much about the women as much as it is about understanding that even men and all genders can embody feminine values of care and of love. And when we value those things, then we measure them, right? So I kind of, I think what Dr. Kishore has presented really captures that, like what the manifestation of that is. And so I kind of thought that the way that I could engage is just that for those of us that might have difficulty with how we land with those solutions is to kind of come back to these fundamental questions of relationality. Because we may be for the right thing, but if we are not in right relationship with ourselves, if we are not understanding that we cannot dominate this earth, we cannot dominate another human being, and that actually there's no separation, and that there are ways in which, Artie talked about mental health, there are comments in the chat about well-being and all of that. There are practices that we can embody in the home that allow us to be in right relationship, then it will be valued. So I'm going to move away a little bit from this kind of philosophical discussion, and I want to give you just a few, I have a few thoughts, and then I'll wrap up. around, you know, something that we've done in our community. So the word that is kind of buzzing right now is resilience.
Studies and economics. ഞാൻ join ചെയ്തില്ലെങ്കിൽ സീനാവില്ലേ? അല്ലെങ്കിൽ join ചെയ്തിടാ നമുക്ക് അറിയാം
Someone needs to be muted. Right. So when we think about, so in our community, we experienced a shooting, right? I'm going to go way off and I'll make it make sense, I promise. So we experienced a shooting, Parkland shooting. You might have seen it on the news in South Florida. And, you know, all of us who were working on community resilience, so some people are working on environmental resilience, personal resilience. There's this understanding that resilience is one thing, and it has multiple dimensions, right? It's not just about physical security. It's about emotional security of young people, especially. It's about being resilient to the climate crisis that we're facing, and so many other things. But it's about this idea that we can bounce back in spite of, that we are building resilience in the systems that we exist in, so that when stuff happens, we can continue, right? We can thrive. And so our community did this whole thing. People got trained, you know, we did the well-being in schools. I'm a mindfulness teacher. We did a lot of these practices that allow us to nurture our inner resilience so that we can have that kind of social transformation we want to see. And out of that process, we formed a Mind-Body Resiliency Coalition with the intention of normalizing these practices in different institutions. And when we were setting goals, which is difficult when you have so many stakeholders that prioritize different things, what we came to was, if there isn't a practice, a ritual happening in the homes in our community, no matter how much we do in schools, no matter how much we do in, you know, agencies, mental health agencies and youth serving agencies and what have you, no matter how much the local government is engaged, we all come from a home. So our main campaign, which we're still working on, it's very difficult, was, what is one practice that we can build a campaign around that can happen in the home, so that what I was describing before, these values kind of rise to the surface again. Because the shooting that happened was a manifestation of many things. It was a manifestation of all the exclusions that I talked about. It manifested in one way. But that individual did not have a home. That individual was jumping from home to home to home. So we kind of went back to that. And so one of the things that, you know, in that campaign we decided is, what would happen if every family, regardless of what that family looked like, in every home, families were having one meal together a day. It didn't matter for how long. We weren't going to prescribe what they did in that time, but they just sat together and they spent time being with. And we had some other kind of pieces in the formula that, you know, we would not be on our phones, that we would be building community. So I think what I'm getting at is that when we begin to nurture our relationality to ourselves in our homes, you know, what happens in my home, I live with 3 men, okay, young men. 2 are young and 1 is older. And what happens around the table when we are doing that is that we begin to see each other, right? And a simple thing like them valuing the housework that I do as a working woman who's doing this, you know, webinar right now, but in my own home, I struggle with valuing the unpaid work that I do in my home. And it takes sitting around the table first for those issues to come to the surface, and then for that to be normalized with 3 young men that are then going to go out into the world and then engage with other women and engage with other parts of the system based on that one conversation that we might have at the dinner table. So I think what I'm trying to say, and I think it's resonating because I'm seeing some comments in the chat, is that we got to go back to basics. We have to go back to, if we want something to be valued, we have to value it ourselves. And we have to be willing to ask ourselves, why is it not being valued? And what are the ways that we can softly and consciously interrupt those patterns? And it starts with being conscious, with being aware, with being present, with owning the way that we show up. I mean, in the United States right now, we don't have the luxury of being asleep. We do not have the luxury of not being conscious, because 1 degree, if we're 1 degree off the mark, it can completely devastate our community right now. So I just wanted to use that example because I felt like it started off with a completely different problem and we still landed back in the home. And so as a result of that, one of the things we did is that even in our educational sort of initiatives where we teach well-being and mindfulness and social emotional learning, is we've realized that the family engagement component is highly important. Okay. And so, because again, it goes back to what is being reinforced in the home. So I'll leave it there. Thank you all for the time. Thank you for letting me, I present in the moment. I don't plan what I ever going to say, but I hope that it was relevant.
Which is why
Thank you.
we have
Thank
you
you,
here.
Nadine. Yeah, that was very, very relevant. You talked about physical resources, and there are so many other resources that make a home love. There is so much of emotions, emotional intelligence, which does not come into the preview. Then you talk about the feminine, which is, that is what is missing. And we have to get back to the basics. Very rightly said. And thank you so much, Nelly, with your knowledge, your approach to the UN. We look forward, for more policy advocacy, because that's what we want to take it forward. Because home is where we all start from, and the value of it has to come out in the GDP because it's creating a bias. That is where we are all standing right now. So thank you so much. I'll just move forward because we have a paucity of time, and I think we should I'm just going to just move forward. Abhilasha is here, and Abhilasha is the renowned educator and the principal of Shining Star International School in Abu Dhabi. Abhilasha, what relevance do you see in such an inclusion in the life and environment of children? Do speak to us about the impact of current lack of inclusion and dignity within household management on children. Abhilasha, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Aarti. And thank you, Nelly, for first and foremost, thank you, Dr. Kishore, for setting the pace for this session. And then Nelly weaving into it and then giving the baton to me. And I do hope that I'm able to do justice to the question, because the question really lies at the heart of what we're discussing today, home. And I'll just again, like I will take a step back and I'll start from the end. What I actually wanted to put it at the end later, like how to sort of gradually break into and put a to halt the what I wanted to say. So I'll start with that. If we teach our children that every form of labor has dignity and every form of labor has value, then we build a future where dignity and fairness shapes economic policies. And this is something that recognizing unpaid work in the GDP, it's not just about numbers. It's about the kind of world we want our children to inherit. And this is something that also I was thinking about it today the whole day, like when the question came, and I was thinking that, how does this happen? And I have a lot of hope in the millennials, because this cycle of conditioning has to break, because it is also very cultural. We have a global audience today in this session. And though the household work and the onus of the household work completely lying on a woman's shoulder, this happens largely around the world, but mostly in the cultures that we come from, in the Western culture, it's a lot of shared responsibilities. But then mostly in our culture, I'm from India, and the Asian culture, this entire responsibility lies on the shoulders of the mother or the ladies of the family. And there is what the change has to come in, because this cycle, this conditioning of this thought has to break, that the work at house, in the house or the home, is only responsibility of the women of the household. And therefore then again going back to the question, that whenever there is especially in underprivileged backgrounds, whenever there is a requirement that more hands have to help, would have to be brought in for help, then it is the girl child who's the first one to be put off the school and to be included in that all hands on deck sort of framework, sort of scenario. So then again, coming back to that, what needs to work and how these policies have to change, because these policy, who are making these policies? We are still like the UN, which was constructed in colonial times, and also by the colonial countries in the colonial powers. So it was mostly white men who wrote the policies. So therefore, the entire UN framework also is sort of requiring change. It's a long gone now conversation that there have to be reforms in the UN. So sorry for digressing from the issue, but then the same thing about that, the policies have to change. Unless and until the policies don't change, we don't see a lot of work happening. And those policies are also made by those people who have that conditioning that no, the women in the household, and this is the work of the lady of the house, so therefore it is substances work, it is not to be paid, it is all part of that responsibility that has to be shouldered by the women of the house. And therefore then children who are watching this, a child who sees his or her mother working day in and day out without any appreciation, and then also it all goes into that no pocket money, it is a responsibility. The child internalizes that situation, so they grow up with that conditioning. And again, social economic background matters. So a child from a low socioeconomic background sees that, grows up seeing the undervalue in that work, and therefore that affects the child's psychology, that affects the child's entire self-esteem, that affects the child's thinking of the value of work. And this will continue, so this the cycle of that intergenerational poverty, that intergenerational disadvantage, that needs to be broken, and that all will break with policy. And who will change those policies? Again, it again lies at the heart of the education system. And therefore again, I'm coming back to that question of that I have a lot of hope in the millennials, because these are the generation which are now young parents, and they are also from that generation where both the parents are working. And this is also the generation which has very clear thought process, where their demands uh, are clear, and their expectations are very clear. So they know, both husband and wife, or the partners, they know that they have to share the equal work. But now I'm also talking about the elite. We have a large majority of the same age group, which is in tier 2, tier 3 cities, but there the condition remains the same. So again, I have a lot of hope that by education and by awareness, there is a change that will come, and is already it's hopefully, we're going to see that change in our lifetime. And there are a few things that you're talking about, how that dignity and inclusion, how it affects dignity of labor in households, and how the children seeing that, they grow up with that thought. And when we have children, when they see that the caregivers at home, the mom or any other member of the household, they see that there is value in their work. So that is a default mechanism that they grow up with. It builds it into their system. So they also start valuing it. And this also, it again goes to gender gap in the household. So when the child sees that there is a responsibility, and this is a shared responsibility, and there's a lot of value to that role, the child then definitely grows up and grows up with that conditioning that it is a shared responsibility. And then, of course, then there are policies that help in that matter, where there is focus on uh, in support of children, so children don't miss out on school. So there's no academic loss. There is there is attendance and attendance and academic growth. Attainment is strongly linked. So when children attend school, and that definitely again they break the cycle of generational disadvantage. And there is uh, another thing that I was writing about was that um, the Nelly spoke about emotional security, and that again ties in into so well with with children in household where both the parents share equal responsibility, and the child grows up with that emotional security, that this is a regular thing. This is how work is to be distributed at home. And this is not just lopsided one parent responsibility, and that one parent has to be the woman of the house. So it is a family. And I also remembered, while Nelly was talking about emotional security, I remembered the value of home and the value of a secure home. You remember 2012 London riots, and it was mostly students that initiated those riots. And then when a study was conducted and there was more investigation, unfortunately these children came from homes where there were either lack of parental control or there was a single parent home. So again, the value of a secure home is so important. It could be a single parent, it could be both the parents together, not necessarily that it's only a single parent household where children have problems. It is a home which has a secure environment where the child grows up with emotional, with a lot of love. There's a lot of nurturing for the child, and the responsibility and the values that are ingrained in the child's growth. And therefore that home becomes a secure environment, a safe space where the child grows up with those right emotional resilience, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence to make the right decision. And there's another point I had jotted down, that a child is the mirror of a family. So what goes on in the family, we see that reflected in a child's behavior, because this is a question that I always ask my students when I see them, as a where did you learn this from? Because we are not teaching you this in school. So at home, that home environment, the security of the house, where both the parents have respectful relationships, mutual appreciation for each other, and know how they have to behave in front of the children, how they have to model behavior in front of their kids, how the men of the house have to respect the ladies of the house. And similarly, it's reciprocal. Both the parents or the adults in the house, could be grandparents, uncle, aunts, anyone, everyone, where the children are exposed to that respectful environment, compared to the children who are exposed to the environment where there's abuse, there is disrespect, there is insult, there is demeaning of each other's existence. We know that there's going to be problem in those children's nurturing, and therefore then we step in as a school. We step in, but the child spends about 6 to 7 hours in school, and the majority of the time the child is at home. So there's always, and child is in a conflict as well then, because what we teach it in the school, and then the child goes back and the exposure is completely different. So then the security of a stable family, a stable home, cannot be emphasized enough. And like Nelly said, and I really love this, because I say this to my school and in my to my staff as well, a family that eats together stays together. This is that bond that is there when you break bread together, the kind of conversations that you have on a dining table. We're all like, I remember the lovely time when we and my parents, my father and we used to have heated arguments on some geopolitical issues, and those kind of, and those are the memories, good memories that we have of our childhood. And this is what we want our children to grow with, strong bonds. strong value system, and a safe space where the children can come back to the parents and discuss things without the fear of judgment. And so 3 things over here. One is parental responsibility of modeling behavior. And of course, policy change, that is a must, because without policy change, we can do a lot we can. But if the governments around the world, economists do not recognize the importance of unpaid work in the GDP, then this all is just talks. Then we can just keep having discussions and we come back to it. We do what we can. We are not undermining the importance of our work, and that's extremely important because again, NGOs put in a major amount of work where what UN wants the world to do. And that is amazing. And that's also noteworthy and appreciative. But then again, without policy change, there's still a big lacuna and a big gap that needs coverage. And without that, there's not much help that we can get to the unpaid workers at home.
True. Absolutely wonderful, Abhilasha. I think this was brilliant. To me, what stood out was that this is going to be a slow churn. Okay. So if we, and trust me, I mean, there was this really insane survey that I read about in 2015. 10,000 school students from urban cities were surveyed, and the outcome was 55% agreed that women should be confined to housework and should have a bandwidth to, endure abuse. Now, this is the normalization that happens in a child's mind when he or she sees that the father or the mother or the parents are not in a healthy relationship. And who are these children if not the future policymakers? Which is
Absolutely,
why
absolutely. There's one point again I just remembered. So we get a lot of CVs. Like as a principal, I receive a lot of CVs, and sometimes these CVs are there's a husband who's bringing the CV to the office, and the husband is accompanying the candidate in the office. I said, "What are you doing here?" And sometimes the CV is sent by the husband. I said, where's the person whose the CV belongs to? So the control, and this is a worrisome because we want the workforce employees in the school who are independent, independents of their decision making and leave taking. So they'll interfere, the husbands will interfere with the leave or the resignations. And I asked the teachers, I said, if this role was reversed and you had to have this conversation with your husband's boss, will your husband allow it?
Right.
No.
So, Abhi, thank you so much. We do have a paucity of time. I'd hate to sort of stop you because there's so much to learn from your experiences, but I'd quickly like to bring in Dr. Lysinka, and she is the coordinator for the United Nations Commons Cluster, the NGO Major Group, and she's also a founder of the All-Win Network that is, again, invested in creating a lot of advocacy on different wicked problems around the world. And she's also one of the co-founders of the if I'm getting that right, the International Institute of Planetary, Lysinka, fill in the blank for me, and the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. No, I'm just a vice president there. I just want to say how impressed I am with all of our speakers, and each one was just a sparkling diamond showing a lot of light. And then the question remained, well, is there anything else for me to say? I say, well, no, thank you very much. And I say good night. But I'll attempt to say just a few words. My focus will be actually on things that each one of you has been focusing on, but I'd like to focus more on the emotional aspect of what happens in the home and the relationship to that of the global situation, which is actually the home, which those of us who know each other in this workshop have in common. So the fact that work in the home by women and also by men is unpaid and not calculated into the GDP has tended to detract from how we work in the home is valued. It's invisible in economic calculations, and this is serious because the home is the birthplace both of the self of every one of us, and it also determines how and even whether our emerging global community can progress. Home is the place where our journey begins, shaping who we are and how we contribute to the world. It's our first experience of love and security and encouragement, or in its absence, anger, fear, and frustration. These early influences mold our emotional growth, our self-confidence, and our relationships. A nurturing home teaches resilience, turning frustration into determination and failure into motivation. Here we learn to express emotions constructively, celebrate our achievements, and embrace challenges. Encouragement fosters self-belief, while guidance through the setbacks builds strength. With love and structure, children develop a strong identity and a passion for growth, becoming individuals who enrich society through creativity, cooperation, and responsibility. And such individuals have laid the foundation for the United Nations. They've developed the human rights machinery that, despite the many setbacks in the global cooperation experienced today, is still one of the most consistently successful aspects of the United Nations. Conversely, a home lacking emotional support can lead to insecurity, to aggression, and apathy. The desire to dominate, or conversely, to give up our personal responsibility to others. Without guidance, struggles may turn into destructive behaviors, conflict within countries and between countries, and in today's global world, breed leaders who wish to subjugate the whole world to their personal whims. For a home to truly nurture, it must provide love, boundaries, and opportunities to learn. A strong foundation at home creates individuals who in turn build strong communities. When homes succeed in this role, they lay the groundwork for a more compassionate, thriving world. For this reason, it's imperative that unpaid work in the home is honored and supported by society as a whole, and that unpaid work in the home is included in GDP. Thank you.
So much, Jacinta. Very well said and very nicely elaborated that it is the emotional support that we have inside the home. That is what builds, normal and stable people. And that is who are our leaders of tomorrow. And we are building, leaders in our home. And the more stable a home is, and more emotional support people get, children get, more better leaders they will become for tomorrow. Thank you so much. Now, let me ask this question to Ajit ji. Ajit Kumar is the MD of Kushigram Foundation and CEO of Radiance Media. He is a renowned sustainable development integrator. Now, Ajit ji, you have been in sustainable development for 32 years now. What has been your experience with the effect of GDP calculation on families and home, and what do you think should be the way forward? You are muted.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Speaking after so many wise people, task becomes very easy. So I think there's not much left to speak. But the point is that we have spoken a lot about differences within the family and gender issues and the stereotypes that are there. So I was, while I was reading a comment during the conference only about the condition that the survey that Aarti spoke about, where 10,000 people, about out of the 10,000 people, 55% children said that the women, they in fact supported the stereotype that has been created. So I was reminded that thousands of years ago also India was a country where women used to go and travel long distances to give lectures, to participate in debates and discussions. So what has happened within this 2000 years? And similarly in other societies also, there I know there would have been a lot of different times and different kinds of conditions. So but point is that how to come back. So how to be back where we can think of a society where male, female, and everybody spends good time in peace and harmony. And unless home satisfies all the sustainable development goals and people live together in harmony, we can't think of a society living in harmony and peace. So the most important thing is that giving value to the work that is being done at home, because what happens is that there is a small child that is born in a house, and the kind of nurture the child gets, the kind of care the child gets, the kind of education and learning the child gets, the kind of culture the child gets, leads to the real vibrant society. If that environment is not good, society, the problems that we are seeing in the society and most of the things that we have been talking in the last 1.5 hours, the problem is created because of the problems in the families. And everybody must have seen, if not in their families, in the neighbor families or families around. I was lucky in a way that in my family, my two sisters got similar education that I got and similar care that I got, sometimes more than what I got. So I have not seen that. And so similarly, that is how you are you develop and grow. So in my case also, when I got married, I told my wife that we are equal, if not equal, we are similar. So we have similar rights and duties. So whatever you feel like, you always tell me. And that is how my son also saw. So he knows that his mother is not less powerful than my father now, when he feels that she is more powerful. So that is the kind of environment. And whatever work is there, we divide within ourselves. So it is there. It's not like cooking. I don't cook. So sometimes I cook more than few months. I cook more than her, and it's like as we can do together. So basically, we need to value the unpaid work. It's very important. It's most important, more important than the job we do at office, because that creates a good society. And unless there is a good society, there can't be a good government, good democracy, whatever we talk. Neither we can have a good environment, AQI levels and all, because in family also we don't take care of the environment. So if we don't take care of the environment in the family, we won't take care of the environment outside. Similarly, if we don't take care of the health, say like eat good food, if you are going for junk food in the family, obviously we'll never like to have good healthy food outside. But if we have good practice at home, good healthy food, healthy lifestyle at home, we'll follow it in the society. So I think there's not much to speak, because most of the important points have been taken care of. This was a broad overview that I had, and I think we don't have much time also. But if there is anything in the question, I can definitely answer. We work on sustainable development goals, and we try to create clusters where we have all the relevant sustainable goals and targets fulfilled as per the context of the area and the place, with all partners, all stakeholders, NGOs, companies, institutions, government agencies, and civil society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajit. You said, you've shared a very personal anecdotes, and you've shared that, sometimes you do more work. And I would say, as a mother and as a wife, sometimes I do more work. And my husband is a very good cook, and many a times he does a lot of work when I am busy. So that's sharing. And very, very rightly said that everybody should learn to do these chores. It is not about any gender. It is about understanding that these are the basics we all should know. It's not about, I teach my son how to, wash clothes and do cooking. He's more interested in, he wants to be a chef. So sometimes the grandson tells me, what are you doing? You are telling, so there is that old generation bias is there. Then I, stand up and say that, he needs to learn that. Tomorrow he's going to go and out in the world. He needs everything. So if that bias stays, I think it's been there in the generation. It will go with time, with ourselves. We are more open, and the younger generation is more open. So I think the bias is going to go. And very well said, you gave an example. Thank you so much. We have a positive time. Let's ask the last question to Dr. Karuna Balla. She's an educator and ex-principal. Karunaji, with your long years of experience, how do you see the exclusion of chores affecting the building of skills among children? Please, Karunaji.
Yeah. First
Yeah,
of all, thank you,
I
because you,
welcome, Karan.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
pleasure, honor
and
to be here.
all
You're
the
here.
esteemed leaders. This has been such a wonderful learning experience. So, as an educator, as an educationist, I feel that school is, of course, a platform for learning, but At the same time, simultaneously, home and a family, they also play a wonderful role in the life of a student or a child, because there again is a great learning at home. You know, at home, with the mother, with the father, with the siblings, grandparents, they learn all the cultural values, the social values, the emotional values, and also behavioral values. They come to know what is love and how they have to deal with the elders as well as the youngsters. And there is love, there's dignity, there's honor, there's respect, and above all, there is understanding, acceptance, and adjustment. And with all this comes the discipline. So it is not only that the school teaches all these things. I feel that home is a very beautiful, wonderful platform to teach the children, and they can very well understand and develop their life skills when they are cooking with their mother, and then they come to understand and also start setting home aesthetically. They decorate house, making painting, flower arrangement, laying the table, all these little things, they make a lot of difference. And this is where they also learn the time management, that this is the time to study, this is the time to help the mother, and this is the time to do other things, maybe develop some hobbies, something. So this is again a very beautiful way they can learn the life skills. And just like Dr. Kishore said that she is a health minister, I also feel that she is home minister and education minister and also the happiness minister, because she is bringing love and harmony, and that brings all the happiness in the family. And also the child comes to know about the management of time, management of system, management of discipline. There's so many other things, which come in management. And this is something which is really true. The children are open and they can learn a lot. It's not only the school that they're just learning the subjects, socializing, but home gives them a beautiful platform to give them a very holistic and all round personality. This is where they understand each and everything. This is where they know that they have to give respect and honor to each and everyone, because it's not only the respect to the elders, it is the respect to the youngsters also, because when you are giving them respect, you get respect. When you give them love, you get love. So this is again give and take, and a beautiful way to understand the things and the norms, because these are the values. They count most, and we have to adopt them, we have to accept them, and we have to learn. I am so grateful to Mona and Aarti that we have got the beautiful opportunity to listen to Dr. Kishore, then Vinny, and there's so many others, like Gigi just now said. This is so good. Abhilasha gave such a beautiful example and experiences. This is a great learning experience for each one of us. So thank you so much, because it has been already very late. I will not take very long, but yes, I feel that as an educationist, the children also learn at home, and equally well. Thank you so much. Thank you each and everyone. God bless.
Thank you, Karuna Balaji. That was excellent. Thank you for letting us know that the small things that we do in a home, when your children are, you do small things. That's how the skills are being made. When they see the parents do it and they help out, that is where the skill building happens for each one of us. Now, Aarti, you would like to summarize few points and just do the closing, and I'll just do the final
Yes.
one. Please go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Mona. And I can't believe that we actually ended up unraveling so many of these confusing, spaces that are converging and helping us realize that we are nothing but one body of humanity. And if we cannot function as that, then everything that we've been doing so far is gradually becoming irrelevant. And for whom? Not for the neighbor, it's for ourselves. So Mona and I, we've been talking about all of these things, that even if something is cast in stone, remember, nature is an entity that we cannot compete with. It can break the stone. So nothing for us. I mean, the transience of us, the impermanence of us and what we do should be a humbling factor. So if we need to write policies, and Dr. Kishore rightly said that we may not have the point of departure right now. So let's create one and move to somewhere relatively more consequential and meaningful for us to discover our next steps. Everything is always a journey. So I thank everyone here, all the speakers. I wish we had more time, but if you are willing to stick around, we can open for Q&A and a little bit of thought sharing and what you're feeling. Mona, would we have that opportunity?
I'm fine with that. If you are open, if you have the time, please stick around. I would love it. I'm sure we gave the time of 10:30. I think if you do not have time, then I would not stop you. But if you have the time, I would love to know what is your thoughts on the issue. I'm here. I don't have to rush anywhere. I'm here, fully here for this session. So even if like to share a question, I would love it.
So
What do you say?
Session is officially over, but we are here. So I think that should be the first step in how we need to change the parameters of what we subscribe to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aarti, I shared a few haikus from
Yes,
Aarti, I shared a few haikus from Tagore, but I would like to hear from you in your own poetic words.
Do you want me to recite this or just go
Yes.
with...
No. I want to hear your Gaia one.
All right. So all right. Gaia was a poem I had written in one of the UN discussions, and they just asked roughly, what comes to mind. So I think the poem went like, I give you birth from stardust until I give you death to stardust. While you live, you may desecrate my mountains and break my rivers and corrupt what you walk on. But remember, I stand for you more than you stand for me. So humble down, humble down, humble down. That is it.
Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful. This is so wonderful. Thank you, Aarti, for
awesome,
reciting
Aarti.
this. Beautiful.
Very nice.
Right.
Great. Anybody have? Yeah. Thank you, Aarti. Anybody has any questions? Please go ahead. Raise your hands. And you can just ask the question. Yes, Dr. Chakradhar, please go ahead.
So I put down 5 points and I summarized it in one message, but I think I want to reiterate it.
Yes.
I think we need to go back to K-12 education and university education and see what we're doing wrong. And there is a lot of it. We had a session last Saturday, and I can see that there is a gaping hole in our education system. And also in the way we have built our institutions, including the organizations, corporations, and stuff like that. The other big point that comes to me is, and I remember some stories that Aarti was telling me where she picked up these, that peer-to-peer relationships are where bad habits get initiated and reinforced very, very strongly. And Also, again, reinforcing and resonating with Nelly's points, relationality. I think somewhere we are not valuing relationships. That's why we are not valuing communities. So the relationality is the key part. I won't get into more relationality elements because Aarti and I, we have a dear friend who has a book on grassroots economics. His name is Will Ruddick, and I put the link in the chat as well. I think Will talks a lot about resource sharing without money. He calls it commitment pooling. And he talks a lot about elderhood in communities, which is essentially governing communities properly. He uses the words, and I have it on my LinkedIn page. It's called Moira and Dome, which is resource sharing and elderhood practices. So with that, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chakravarti. Thank you. And you send the link. I'm sure we're going to connect with you so that we can have more conversation. It was very rightly said, K-12, the education system needs to be checked, and we can. Like the education, yeah, Aarti is an educator. She's been in the field, and we had so many of the educators talk about it. Abhilasha was from UAE principal. She stressed that there is so much of a need of education system, because that is also, very much we all come from in the home. The education system needs to reiterate what we are talking about, and teaching in a home also, because that is where the conditioning and our thinking gets shaped, and it needs to be in sync with each other. That's absolutely said. Anybody else who would like to ask a question, please? Okay. I'll conclude the session because it's getting late, and everybody has their time, scheduled out, and I will not keep you. I am one more thing. I just wanted to tell you that I am going to keep another session. I basically have a course called Understanding Couple Relationship Better. I have it on Udemy and Gumroad, and I am going to do a live session of that, 90 minutes, on the coming Saturday in the afternoon, 4 to 5:30. And I would invite anybody. I'm going to send out a mail. I'm going to put the post, and I would invite, because what I have done in that is when we're trying to understand couple relationships, why are we different? I have looked at that from the point of view of a nurturer and a provider. I have it on Udemy if you want, but I'm doing it live on Saturday, and I would love to have you all in the session, because this is a very important component when we talk about couple relationship, and that happens in a home, and that needs to be. There are very much aspects that I have been defining a home for a very long time, for the last 10 years, and we need to understand why we are different, and as a nurturer and a provider, what are the strengths we have. And that is what needs to be understood. And I would invite you. I will send out the details for you, put it in the mailer, and I would love to have you there. And let's take the discussion forward, because here we need to be collective in the change we want to bring. At least and until we all get together to understand that what is wrong with our system and what needs to be done to change the system, we will not be able to change it. And like I said, a home needs to be in the system. Right now, it's not in the system, because a home cannot be made with paid work. Money is required because resources are required, but the foundation of home is built on love, commitment, trust. These are all intangibles. We cannot do it without having a home in the system, because in economics also, a household is needed, and that household is a home eventually.
Economics,
what
the etymology of economics, Mona, we were talking about it. Oikos stands for household. That's where the word economy comes from. So,
Yes.
yes, thank you.
I'm very thrilled that one of my students from the first year business administration, she's also here. She's heard me talk about it in class, and now she's hearing us all there. Thank you, Samrita, for coming.
Thank you for joining. We are actually
thank you, all of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, all the leaders, speakers. This has been a great privilege and opportunity to understand and know all about the subject. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Thank you.